Hello, I'm Zach Foda. I'm a gastroenterologist at Johns Hopkins and a member of the CGA Communications Committee. And I'm honored today to be here with Dr. Ajay Bansal, who is the gastroenterologist at the University of Kansas and the PI on a Lynch vaccine trial. And we're going to talk today about that trial. So just to get started, Dr. Bansal, can you tell us a little bit about the trial that you're running and what people are hoping to get out of this?
Absolutely. And thank you, Zach, for reaching out to me about this trial. We are very excited about this trial. This is one of the first trials in this space. So the idea here is that there are these antigens called tumor-associated antigens, which are involved in causing cancer in patients with many different cancers in the GI tract, including those in Lynch. So by using these vaccines, we hope to train the immune system in the human body to combination of these three vaccines to generate T cells and B cells to survey the body, the GI tract, and get rid of abnormal cells which express these abnormal antigens before they turn into polyps or invasive cancer. So that's the basic idea.
Wonderful. And so which patients are eligible for this trial?
So patients with Lynch syndrome are the ones who are eligible for this trial because we feel that this is the population which is going to benefit the most from this trial. Even within that population of Lynch syndrome, we will include those patients with history of colon cancers in the past or colon polyps in the past, because these vaccines are expected to enhance pre-existing immunity. They don't generate de novo immunity, but they enhance pre-existing immunity. So if people have had exposure to those proteins as part of previous polyps or cancer, they will do a better job responding to the vaccines.
Great. And if a patient were to enroll in this trial, what type of testing can the patient expect?
So for the most part, most of the testing will be standard of care. Like any other trial which involves vaccines, we'll be doing a safety and screening labs at baseline, a complete thorough history and physical examination to make sure the patients are safe to undergo or participate in the vaccine trial. Once they sign consent, they will, and their labs look good and they don't have any contraindications and fit all of the inclusion criteria, they'll get a series of 3 series of vaccines after a baseline colonoscopy, which would be standard of care. And then they will get a booster at 1 year, followed by another set of booster vaccines, along with the colonoscopy, which is again standard of care. And then there'll be some blood draws off and on in the early part of the trial.
And for all the patients who do join this trial, will they all be getting vaccines?
That's a great question. So the way we design the vaccine, it has different phases in it. There's a safety phase 1, and there's a safety phase 2, and then the final phase is randomized controlled trial. So in the first 2 phases, all patients will get the vaccines and a combination with an immune booster called N803 or IL-15 superagonist. But in the randomized controlled trial component, once we are done with the safety phases, half the participants will get the vaccines and the booster, and the other half will get the placebo.
Great. And I know you just mentioned there'll be multiple phases of this, but what endpoints or outcomes are you particularly interested in looking at in this trial?
So we are looking at the endpoint of colorectal neoplasms, which includes colorectal cancers, includes adenomas, advanced adenomas, which are part of polyps in the colon. And all of these will be combined as an endpoint together. And that's the primary endpoint.
And do you have any expectations on the results you might see?
Yes. So our expectation is that the combination of vaccines and IL-15 superagonist, which is an immune booster to generate good immune cells in the body, will help us to decrease the risk of colon cancer, rectal cancer, and colon polyps in the population which gets the vaccines. And an additional excitement we have is that because many of these antigens are also involved in causing cancer in, let's say, stomach, small bowel, pancreas, ovaries, bladder, and kidney, one of the things we look at would be whether these vaccines also decrease the risk of cancers in these other organs besides the colon.
That's wonderful. And after this trial is complete, what future directions do you see for vaccines like this or other avenues of preventing cancer and Lynch syndrome?
That is a great question. So this is a phase 2 trial. Typically, most things would make into clinical practice after a phase 3 trial. So depending on the results of this trial, we plan to design a phase 3 trial in which we will have a similar or larger number of population which will be enrolled for to confirm our results. And if those results pan out, then hopefully one of these days, vaccines will be part of cancer prevention in patients with Lynch syndrome, and many gastroenterologists such as you would have access to those vaccines to really counsel patients who come to your clinic.
Wonderful. And as we mentioned, this is a multi-institutional study, but some people watching this won't be getting their care at one of these institutions. How can a patient or their doctor get a patient enrolled into this study if they're not at one of these institutions?
That is a wonderful question, and talks about the logistics. So what we did was, when we designed the trial, we made sure to pick sites across the country. So we have sites in Arizona, Michigan, Kansas City, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. So we also have this trial listed on clinicaltrials.gov. So all patients who are interested can look up the number and the email there and contact the site which is closest to them. For instance, what I did recently was, there was a patient who lives between here and Detroit. So we talked about the trial, and then the patient decided to go to University of Michigan, which was closer to him because he works there 6 months out of a year. So that's one of the ways to do it, to contact the site closest to you.
Great. Well, thank you for your time today. Do you have any final words for those watching this video and those in the Lynch syndrome community?
Absolutely. So we all know that the future of cancer prevention in Lynch and other syndromes is immunoprevention. So the combination of work with vaccines and other immune boosters is the way to move forward, because the hope here is that short-term treatment with vaccines can provide long-term protection, unlike many other agents which have to be used on a long-term basis to provide protection. So I would appeal to all the patients to look up the trial, and if they're interested, to contact the site closest to them.
Well, thank you so much. It was great having you on here today.
Thank you so much, Zach. Thank you for your interest.